Hare Krishna. Welcome to another evening in Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. I'm your host, Chaturatma Das. Very happy to be back with you. I apologize, my schedule of late has been a little up and down, and I haven't been as regular with my broadcasts. This is the nature of life, is that we have many changes come our way. The challenge of our Krishna consciousness during those changes is what determines how we progress nicely. So tonight we're going to do something a little special. First of all, I'd like to take a second and acknowledge those that have joined us in the chat room. I see Kartika Devi Dasi is there. Very nice to have her with us again. And I see several new names, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Glenn, Subala. I don't know which Subala that is. There are so many. And Parashuram Prabhu. Very nice to see all of you here. As each of the new members come in, we'll ask you to encourage them to log in and let us know where they're viewing from. Glenn, I remember now as I'm seeing that you're from Scotland. I remember you've joined us many times before. So, as I said, we're going to start with something a little special tonight. And I'm going to begin by reciting 4 verses that will give a clear hint as to the direction that we'll take this evening's broadcast. Ahe Kshetrapala Shiva Tumidoya Maya Krishna Bhakti Dehamara Hahida Sadaya. O Kshetrapala, Lord Shiva, protector of the holy Dham, you are certainly very merciful. Being kind to me, please give me love for Krishna. Varameka Vrine Tape Purnat Kabahi Varshanat Bhagavati Achutyam Bhaktin Tat Paresha Tatat Vai. O Shivaji Shankar, you are completely full in devotion. You fulfill the desires of your devotees. Seeing you, I am offering this prayer to you. Please fulfill my desire and let me have unflinching faith and bhakti to Sri Krishna. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Shambhu, Lord Shiva, is the chief of all the Vaishnavas. And finally, Srimad Gopishwaram Bande Shankaram Karunam Maya Sava Kleshaharam Devam Vrindaranya Rati Padam. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Gopishwar, who is merciful Lord Shiva himself. He removes all troubles and grants one spiritual love for Sri Vrindavan Dham. So, those of you that have concluded we're speaking about Lord Shiva this evening would be correct. We are speaking about him as today is Shivratri, the appearance day of Lord Shiva. So we've decided to talk a little bit about him. The format that we discuss in this series is called Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. So one may say, well, why are we discussing Lord Shiva? He was anybody. But what exactly is a Vaishnavacharya? Someone who has come before us, someone who sets an example by their activities of how to be Krishna conscious, and someone who shows us devotion to Lord Krishna. This is a person we can understand to be an acharya. To this end, Lord Shiva is one of the 12 Mahajans in our line of teachings. He's accepted as a very elevated and great personality for the purpose of disseminating Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we have Vaishnavacharyas. So we can understand that he's also. And this is indicated by the verse Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, that the greatest amongst Vaishnavas, this verse comes from Lord Vishnu himself, the greatest amongst Vaishnavas is Lord Shiva. So what is the definition of a Vaishnava? There are many definitions of a Vaishnava. For this discussion, we can say that a Vaishnava is one who is always thinking of Krishna, and a Vaishnava is one who, when we see him, he reminds us of Krishna. Now, certainly this would describe Lord Shiva. We know that Lord Shiva is always fixed in meditation upon the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and that when devotees see Lord Shiva, they become enlivened in their own devotional service. But wait a minute. Doesn't Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita that we should not worship the demigods? Even my most reverend favorite Vaishnavacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, strongly in his Prem Bhakti Chandrika speaks against any worship of the demigods. So how do we balance this out and understand what these words of the Acharyas mean? Hey Mauricio, Hare Krishna. I had to break in. Mauricio's my buddy. One of these days we're going to meet each other, Mauricio. All right. So what do these words of the Vaishnavacharyas mean? Well, the topmost Vaishnavacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Now, why do I say topmost? Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared for the purpose of showing us how does a devotee behave. We're coming upon very closely Gaur Purnima, where we celebrate the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give the example of what the life of a devotee should be like, of how a devotee should worship, how a devotee should meditate, how a devotee should engage in devotional practices. Now, when Mahaprabhu himself toured South India during his travels throughout India, he visited almost all, if not all, of the Shiva temples to be found there. And he would go in and very respectfully take darshan of these deities, take the prasad there, associate with the Vaishnavas there, offer his respects like this. Actually, so much so was Lord Shiva satisfied that he and his wife Parvati appeared before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the guise of a Brahmin and a Brahmin's wife. This is, told in the Chaitanya Lila literatures. So, during this time, when Lord Chaitanya was traveling in this way, he wrote one very famous work called the Shivastakam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left very, very few works behind him. But one of these works was a prayer glorifying Lord Shiva. And I want to take time and read it. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. But this was composed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and given to us through the medium of Murari Gupta, who wrote the Chaitanya Charita, which described many of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Mahaprabhu says, I perpetually offer obeisances unto Shiva, the Lord of the primal Devas, who is the original father of created beings, whose character is gracious, upon whose head, which is crested by the sickle moon, the Ganga springs. You are a festival to the eyes of Gauri, the fair goddess. I offer my obeisances unto you, who resemble a moon of molten gold, who is dressed in garments colored like the group of budding blue lotuses, our lustrous rain clouds, who bestows the most desirable boon to your devotees by your delightful dancing, who offers his shelter to those who seek to become one with the transcendental effulgence of Godhead, and whose flag bears the image of Nandi the bull. I offer my obeisances unto you, who dispel darkness with your three eyes, the sun, the moon, and the fire, and thus cause auspiciousness for all the living entities in the universe, and whose potency easily defeats thousands of moons and suns. I offer my obeisances unto you, whose form is brilliantly illuminated by the jewels of Anantadev, the king of snakes, who possesses divine potencies. You are clothed in a tiger skin. You stand in the midst of 1,000-petaled lotus, and your two arms are adorned with lustrous bangles. I offer my obeisances unto you, who bestow happiness to your servitors, as you pour upon them the liquid nectar flowing from your reddish lotus feet, upon which charming ankle bells ring. Obeisances to you, who are adorned by an abundance of gems. Please endow me today with pure love for Sri Hari. O Sri Ram, O Govinda, O Mukunda, O Sari, O Sri Krishna, O Narayana, O Vasudeva. I offer my obeisances unto you, Lord Shiva. You are the monarch ruling over all the bee-like devotees who are mad to drink the nectar of these and other innumerable names of Sri Hari, and who thus destroys all grief. I offer my respectful obeisances to you, Sri Shiva, who are forever inquired of confidentiality by Sri Narada and other great sages, who very easily bestows boons upon them, and who bestows the happiness of Hari Bhakti to those who seek boons of you, who thereby create auspiciousness and you are the Guru to everyone. I offer my obeisances to you, who are a festival of auspiciousness for the eyes of Gauri. You are the Lord of her life energy. You bestow rasa and are expert in forever singing songs with eagerness of the pastimes of Lord Govinda. A person who lovingly hears with rapt attention this wonderful eightfold prayer to Sri Shiva can quickly gain Hari Prema as well as transcendental knowledge, the realization of that knowledge, and unprecedented devotional potency. So these are the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he speaks about Lord Shiva. Now, through these words, are we to assume that Lord Chaitanya indicates that Shiva is better than Krishna, better than Vishnu? No, of course, certainly not. Mahaprabhu spent much time discussing in South India with the Shaivites, with the followers of Lord Shiva, about who is better, Lord Vishnu or Lord Shiva. And there were very lengthy arguments, discussions, so much quoting of scriptures back and forth. And what did Mahaprabhu say to them? He told them that the foot wash of Lord Vishnu is the Ganga. And Lord Shiva takes that Ganges river upon his head. So therefore we can understand that Vishnu is superior to Lord Shiva. So in this way, very, very simple, easy way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu convinced all of these personalities who sought to argue with him about that. Now, at the same time, it's important that we understand that it's not a opportunity or not a opening for us to disregard or to be disrespectful to Lord Shiva. I mean, how can we disrespect somebody who has the Ganges up on top of their head? The very foot wash of Lord Vishnu himself. So, as devotees, we have to strike that balance. So, to do this, we need to understand who is Lord Shiva. And there are some indications of that. For instance, in the Anusasana Parva of the Mahabharata, this is in a middle section, the Battle of Kurukshetra is going on, and Yudhishthira Maharaj, he asked Grandfather Bhishma to please describe for him the glories of Lord Shiva. This is Yudhishthira's request of his grandfather. And Bhishma Dev replies to him, he says, the only person in all of the universes that can fully explain and understand Lord Shiva is Sri Krishna himself. Lord Shiva is smeared with the ashes of dead bodies from the crematoriums. He decorates his body with bones and skulls and snakes and the skins of various animals. And he's adorned with the 3 horizontal lines of tilak. Even his appearance is difficult for an ordinary person to understand. What to speak of the activities he performs? He grants different benedictions to the demons. He drinks poison. He speaks in personal philosophy when he incarnates as Sankaracharya. And even in one of Lord Vishnu's incarnations, that of Lord Ram, he allows himself to be worshipped by Lord Ramchandra. So, as Grandfather Bhishma says, how is it possible for anyone except Lord Krishna to fully understand and fully to explain him? Some further indication is given very nicely here about the position of Lord Shiva in the Vamana Purana. And in the Vamana Purana, it explains that Lord Vishnu expands himself as Lord Brahma and as Lord Shiva for the purpose of directing the different qualities of material nature. We know that Lord Vishnu takes responsibility for the mode of goodness. Goodness means the maintenance of the universe. And we know that Lord Brahma takes responsibility for the mode of passion, the creation of the universe. And this leaves, of course, Lord Shiva, who takes responsibility for the modes of ignorance, which is the destructive aspect of the universe. This is explanation is given in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Adi Lila. And Maheshwar Mahadeva is understood not to be an ordinary living being. And but at the same time, he's not equal to Lord Vishnu either. So the comparison between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva is given in the Brahma Samhita that Lord Vishnu is like milk and that Lord Shiva is like yogurt. I mean, what is yogurt? Yogurt is basically milk. It's the same thing, except that it has been altered somewhat. It still comes from milk. It's still milk in its basic form, but it's been adjusted a bit. It's been changed slightly so that it's something different. So this is the understanding from Brahma Samhita as the difference between Brahma and Shiva. Of the same potency, of the same nature, but Shiva is slightly different. Jiva Goswami also. Of course, Jiva Goswami, we know Jiva Goswami was considered even by modern day scholars to be the most prolific of the Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas. Excuse me. He mentions in his Bhakti Sandarbha that the pure devotee's observation is that the spiritual master and Lord Shiva are actually one and the same, because their purpose is the same in of directing the devotee towards the lotus feet of Krishna and allowing one to become closer to Krishna. Now, in the Sadgoshamastakam, the 8 prayers glorifying the spiritual master, we glorify the Guru as being non-different than Krishna, as being like that, but the servitor Godhead is the phrase used in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the same way, the pure devotee understands that Lord Shiva is that same personality, that same servitor Godhead, bringing the living entities close to Krishna, but at the same time serving Krishna himself, and very advanced in his own potency. So this is a little bit of a description of Lord Shiva's activities. In the 4th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Prachetas, those of you may or may not remember the Prachetas, they were the sons of, remember whose sons they were. But they were performing great austerities and went underwater for 10,000 years and then came back up after all these meditations. And they offered a prayer that says, the prayer to Lord Vishnu, in which they say, "My dear Lord, by virtue of a moment's association with Lord Shiva, who is very dear to you and who is your most intimate friend, we are fortunate enough to attain your shelter. You, Lord Vishnu, are the most expert physician, capable of treating the incurable disease of material existence. On account of our great fortune, we have been able to take shelter at your lotus feet." So the Prachetas point out that Krishna is the goal that they want to attain, that he will relieve their distress and anxiety and disturbances in the material world, and that by getting the mercy and the association of Lord Shiva, that goal will be able to be attained. Now, Srila Prabhupada speaks very nicely in the purport there. I'm going to read this explanation that Srila Prabhupada gives. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 30th chapter, verse 38. Prabhupada says here, "Without taking shelter of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, one cannot attain relief from the clutches of Maya, the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease." The Prachetas received the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the supreme devotee of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaishnavanam yata sambhu. The most exalted Vaishnava is Lord Shiva. And those who are actually devotees of Lord Shiva will follow Lord Shiva's advice and take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Now this is a very important point that Prabhupada emphasizes. Those who are actually his devotees. Now we have many people that, oh, I'm a Shiva Bhakta, as they smoke on their ganja or whatever, they do some nonsense like that. But here Prabhupada says, if you're actually a devotee of Lord Shiva, you'll follow his advice and take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. The so-called devotees of Lord Shiva, who are simply after material prosperity, are in a way deceived by Lord Shiva. He does not actually deceive them, because Lord Shiva has no business in deceiving people. But because these so-called devotees of Lord Shiva want to be deceived, Lord Shiva, who is very easily pleased, allows them the satisfaction of different material benedictions. These benedictions might ironically result in the destruction of these so-called devotees. For instance, Ravana took all the material benedictions from Lord Shiva, But the result was that he was ultimately destroyed and lost his family, kingdom, and everything else because he misused Lord Shiva's benediction. Because of his material power, he became very proud and puffed up, and so he dared to kidnap the wife of Lord Ramchandra. In this way, he was ruined. To get material benedictions from Lord Shiva is not difficult, but actually these are not benedictions. The Prachetas received the benediction from Lord Shiva, and as a result they attained the shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. This is the real benediction. The gopis also worshipped Lord Shiva in Vrindavan, and the Lord is still staying there as Gopishwar. The gopis, however, prayed that Lord Shiva bless them by giving them Lord Krishna as their husbands. There is no harm in worshipping a demigod, provided one's aim is to go back to home, back to Godhead. Generally, people go to the demigods for material benefit. Enamored by material results, they lose their intelligence. In this connection, it is noted that sometimes in the revealed scriptures, Lord Shiva is described as being non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The point is that Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu are so intimately connected that there is no difference in opinion. The actual fact is Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arushabha Britya. The only spiritual master is Sri Krishna, and all others are his servants. The only supreme master, is Sri Krishna, and all others are his servants. This is the real fact, and there is no difference of opinion between Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu in this connection. Nowhere in the revealed scriptures does Lord Shiva himself claim to be equal to Lord Vishnu. Excuse me. So this is a very important point. Prabhupada makes two significant issues in this purport speaking about Lord Shiva. That many people worship Lord Shiva for material results. And it is quite true that one can worship Lord Shiva and get a variety of different types of material results. These are indicated as the example Prabhupada gives of Ravana, or there was that other demon, Vrikasura. And so in this way, we see that these personalities worship for a very, very material result, and as the end of that was that all of their desires were completely satisfied materially, but it was their undoing. Prabhupada mentions that the gopis are an example he gives of worshiping Lord Shiva for the attainment of Krishna. And this type of worship is acceptable, because one is not endeavoring to be able to get a material result, but instead they're endeavoring to become more and more Krishna conscious. The 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find also the pastimes of Markandeya Rishi. Markandeya Rishi is described, and he is engaged in the worship of Lord Shiva. Garga Muni, the astrologer and family priest of Lord Krishna's father and mother, he was also a disciple of Lord Shiva. Narada Muni describes himself as Lord Shiva being his guru. This is in the Narada Pancharatna, he speaks about that. And then, of course, as we've mentioned, what about the gopis? Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that the highest type of worship is that worship which is in the mood of the gopis. Gopi Bhartur Parakamalaya Dasa 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 Nudas. Considers himself to be a servant of that person who understands that worship of the gopis. And the gopis were clearly engaged in worshiping Shiva. But why? So that he would grant them the benediction that they would get Krishna as their husband. In other words, not that we would think, oh, I want Krishna as my husband, in a very immature way, trying to be at a level of advancement beyond where we are, but that we want to be fully absorbed in Krishna, because this is what a good wife does. She's absorbed in the activities of her husband, always thinking of him and how to serve him. And this is the activities of the gopis. This is why they prayed to Lord Shiva, and this is why we as devotees would follow in their footsteps as instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Lord Shiva has two different kinds of mercy. And it mentions here that the Vaishnavas worship him, such as we mentioned the gopis, And for that, he's known as Gopeshwar Mahadeva. We'll speak a little bit more about Gopeshwar Mahadeva later. But the two different types of mercy that Lord Shiva has. One is called Sakapata Kripa, and one is called Akapata Kripa. And this is a mercy of duplicity and mercy without duplicity. Prabhupada spoke a little bit about that deceiving nature in the purport there to the fourth canto, that Lord Shiva somewhat deceives his followers. This is duplicitous. So the demons get the mercy that comes with duplicity. Prabhupada mentions in that purport we just talked about, Prabhupada mentions Ravana, how he very much was endeavoring in that way. And he wanted material things, wealth, power, strength, prestige, honor, position, all of that. And so Shiva gave it to him. All right, Tatashtu, take it, let it be yours. And in this way he got it. But what does he himself have? Shiva is dressed simply in skins of animals, if that, mostly naked, sitting under a tree with no proper residence, no great wealth or anything like that. So, in this way, it is going to be the opposite for his followers. His whole body is smeared with ashes. His followers want to smear their bodies, these personalities like Ravana, to which he gives this duplicitous mercy, smear their bodies with perfumes and jewels and so on like that. But what do they get in the end? All of that is stolen away from them in each of these cases that Prabhupada cites here. Whereas the devotee, Padma Purana instructs that Lord Hari is worshipable by all. He is the controller of the greatest controllers of the universe. Nevertheless, one should not respect these controllers, such as Brahma and Shiva. And so, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who is the Ishwar of all Ishwars, he gives respect to these personalities, Shiva and Brahma, particularly to Lord Shiva we're speaking tonight. And he understands that their association can advance, elevate, and give assistance to the devotees in their path of devotional service. There's one very, very nice prayer here from the Gautamiya Tantra, that if one offers to worship Lord Gopal, but disrespects his parama dharma, bhaktis, his devatas engaged in his service, they will be lost. They will not get bhakti. If someone has acquired some bhakti, by such disrespect, it will be lost and destroyed. So one should not disrespect the demigods who engage in the service of the Lord. Now, of course, we know there are 33 million different demigods, as explained in the Shastra. Not all of them are on the level of what we're speaking about tonight, but those that are acting on behalf of the Lord, and those who are worshiping the Lord, these personalities we have to give due respect to. Brihat Bhagavatamrita. There's one very, very interesting story here. I just want to refer to Dhruva Maharaj. The story of Dhruva Maharaj is also from the fourth canto of the Bhagavatam. And Dhruva Maharaj had become very angry with the Yakshas for the loss of his family members. And so he began killing the Yakshas in great numbers. And in the process, Swayambhuva Manu came to him and he instructed him that you shouldn't be killing the Yakshas in this way. What he actually said to him is that you're killing the Yakshas and they're all related to Kuvera. And Kuvera is the brother of Lord Shiva. And as a result, Lord Shiva will become very angry at this activity. And so he stopped fighting because he thought, if I offend Lord Shiva or Lord Shiva's family members, such as Kuvera, that in this way it will be very bad for me. It will be disrespectful to a Bhagavat Bhakti, to a greatly advanced devotee of the Lord. So if we aspire after developing Bhagavat Bhakti, we should not disrespect the demigods, particularly Lord Shiva. In the Kurma Purana, Lord Krishna himself offers this final word in this matter. He says that one who is offering worship to me, but disrespects Lord Shiva, he will go to hell. It's a very strong statement, but this is what Lord Vishnu himself has to say on the subject. Now, Brihat Bhagavatamrita. We've mentioned this a few times here. Brihat Bhagavatamrita is the story of one devotee, Narada Muni, aspiring to find out who is the recipient of the mercy of the Lord. Who has received this mercy in the most wonderful way? So he goes on speaking very, very nicely to different personalities, and each one says, no, I'm not the recipient of the Lord's mercy. I haven't received it. You go to such and such devotee. And each of these devotees very humbly sends him forward. So in this way, we see that when he came to Lord Shiva, that Lord Shiva said to him, Lord Shiva, Narada actually, he actually explains that Krishna never gets angry to Lord Shiva. But, this is Lord Brahma speaking. Narada has gone to Brahma and is inquiring from him, you must be the recipient of the mercy of the Lord. You've gotten so much blessings from him, and like this, you're the creator of the universe. So Lord Brahma then in turn says to him, he says, no. He says, I've never actually gotten the mercy of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead never gets angry with Lord Shiva. He's been angry at me many times. When I gave the boon to Hiranyakasipu, and he had to appear as Lord Nrsingadev, after killing Hiranyakasipu, Lord Krishna said to Lord Brahma, he said to me, do not ever give such a benediction again. You will cause me great difficulty by this benediction. So in this way he chastised him. After the death of Vrikasura, you'll remember Vrikasura was the demon that got a benediction from Lord Shiva and then tried to kill Lord Shiva, and the Lord appeared as a small dwarf Brahmin boy to discourage him and to ultimately save Lord Shiva. He then turned, Krishna did, and spoke very softly and sweetly to Lord Shiva. And he said to him, O Jagat Guru Mahadeva, this demon rascal was killed by me because of his sinful reaction. You yourself are the Jagat Guru, Mahajan for the universe. If anyone commits an aparad to a Mahajan, or a Jagat Guru like yourself, how will he ever get any auspicious from me? It is not possible. So, excuse me. In this way, Narada Muni relays this pastime of how wonderful it is that Lord Shiva is receiving this mercy in such a way that Lord Vishnu himself is very, very satisfied with him. Now, when we mentioned Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's travels to South India, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled to these temples, he actually stopped at each of the temples, as I mentioned, to offer respects and took the Mahaprasad from these deities. In many of these temples, the prasad that is given to Lord Shiva is offered first to Lord Vishnu. Then the remnants of Lord Vishnu are given to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva being a devotee, that makes the prasad becomes Mahaprasad. So one can take the Mahaprasad from a devotee. Actually, Lord Chaitanya says when this discussion goes on, I believe it's with Murari Gupta and one other personality, I can't remember. They're discussing this exact point of taking the prasad from Lord Shiva. And he mentions that because of the fact that this is the prasad of a devotee, and a devotee only eats the prasad of the Lord, therefore it becomes Mahaprasad. And by taking such Mahaprasad, yes, as Earth, Wind, and Fire said, Mahaprasad, it becomes the wonderful remnants of a devotee of the Lord. Now, it's also very nice to note here that the acharyas that we are more currently available with, are familiar with, such as our immediate acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur comes to mind. Bhaktivinoda Thakur very enthusiastically established the worship of Lord Shiva in the different dhams in Mayapur. Just let me find my notes here. Give me just 1 second. Yes. One of the functions that Lord Shiva serves is to protect the holy dhams. Of course, because Lord Shiva is the intensity of fiery destruction, he is able to give the protection to those holy places by destroying those items which will come and those items which will actually cause disturbances. So he keeps those things out. This is one of the services he renders. So in the holy Dham of Sri Mayapur, we find that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has established in Antardweep. There's a very, very wonderful Shiva Lingam that is established there. And also in Rudradweep. Bhakti Ratnakar gives a description of this Rudradweep and how important it is in the Mayapur region. So these two places, Kshetrapala is the name that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives to the Shiva Lingam, to the farm of Lord Shiva, established there to protect these dhams. You'll remember when we started off this evening, I read this prayer. O he Kshetrapala Shive Tume Doyamaya Krishna Bhakti Dehamara Haya Sadaya. O Kshetrapala, Lord Shiva, protector of the holy Dham, you are certainly very merciful. Being kind to me, please give me love for Krishna. This is a Bengali poem, and this is glorifying these forms of Lord Shiva that are there to protect any disturbances from entering into the Dham, any difficulties from intruding upon the mood of devotion that is given there. And this goes for all of the different Dweep. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was known for installing 4 prominent Shiva Lingams throughout the Mayapur area, in Antardweep, in Rudradweep, in Samantadweep, and finally in Godrumadweep. Excuse me. These are the 4 Shiva Lingams that he installed in these places, praying for Lord Shiva to manifest himself and in this way protect the holy dhams from any type of disturbance. Now, if we look at Vrindavan Dham, this is in Goradham, where Lord Chaitanya made his pastimes. If we look in Vrindavan Dham, we find also that these personalities are there, but predominantly we see that these forms of Lord Shiva, their installation was brought about by Brajanab, who was the grandson of Lord Krishna. He was actually responsible for installing many of the deities, re-establishing some and installing other deities there in Vrindavan. And so in this way, it mentions that Brajanab discovered the different pastime places of Radha and Krishna and the gopis, established deities there, and then installed the deities of Lord Shiva for the purpose of protecting the dhams. And 4 particular deities in Vrindavan he's known for establishing. And that would be Bhuteshwar Mahadev in Mathura, Gopishwar Mahadev in Vrindavan, Chakaleshwar Mahadev on Govardhan in Manasi Ganga, and Kamyeshwar Mahadev at Kamyavan. That's very, very interesting. This Bhuteshwar Mahadev, excuse me, I've got a bit of a bug I'm fighting tonight. In the Adi Varaha Purana, Lord Krishna offers the following praises of Bhuteshwar Mahadev. Now, the Adi Varaha Purana is a very, very old scripture, very, very ancient scripture. And so we can see that this worship of Lord Shiva as Bhuteshwar Mahadev dates back to a very ancient time. So these are the following verses from the mouth of Sri Krishna Bhagavan himself. O Deva, O Shiva, you will be the protector of Mathura, O greatest of the gods. Whoever sees you in your form as Bhuteshwar Mahadev will attain my abode. By seeing Bhuteshwar Mahadev, all sins are destroyed. One who sees him achieves the land of Mathura. And Mathura is the deity of Lord Bhuteshwar, who grants liberation even to the most sinful person. This Bhuteshwar deity is therefore very dear to me. How is it possible that a sinful person who tries to worship me will not worship Bhuteshwar Mahadev? And if he tries to, how will he obtain any devotion to me? Those who are bewildered by my Maya, who are the lowest of men, will not meditate, bow down, or offer prayers to Bhuteshwar Mahadeva. So in this way, Lord Krishna himself gives this very, very wonderful praise about the glories of Lord Bhuteshwar Mahadeva. Throughout all of Vrindavan, there are many different forms of Lord Shiva. As I mentioned, these four are very prominent. And in Vrindavan city proper, in Vrindavan town proper, is the Gopeshwar Mahadev. And Gopeshwar Mahadev is the most prominent of these forms. Gopeshwar Mahadev is given the name because he desired very much to enter into the rasa dance, but was restricted because he was in a male form. So he wanted to witness this pastime. So he was given to Vrinda Devi, who took him to a kund and had him bathe, and when coming out of that kund, he had the form of a gopi, and he was given the service of standing at the gate to the rasa dance and preventing any person from coming in and disturbing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And thus, in this way, he's known as the protector of Vrindavan Dham. He's known as that personality who gives shelter to those devotees who want to attain that goal, and at the same time prevents those that are not qualified and that are not capable of coming in. Now, there's a very nice prayer given to this Gopeshwar Mahadev. The author of this prayer is a personality that most of us will not be familiar with. His name is Ram Narayan Mishra. Ram Narayan Mishra was a disciple of, in the line of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. You may remember in the story of Gopal Bhatta Goswami that he had this one disciple, Gopinath. And Gopinath didn't exactly desire to get married. So he had some brothers, and one of those brothers was Damodar. So Damodar's disciple, his disciple, was this Ram Mishra. And Ram Narayan Mishra wrote a very, very wonderful prayer to Gopeshwar Mahadev, which is quoted. It's actually mentioned in Nityananda Das's Prem Vilas. Srila Prabhupada speaks about the Prem Vilas. We've used it and quoted it many, many times in our series Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas, as it gives a very detailed understanding of the second generation of Mahaprabhu's associates. So in that, this Gopeshwar Mahadev prayer, Gopeshwar Astakam, is mentioned, and I'm going to read this. I offer my repeated obeisances to he whose lotus feet are worshipable by the opulent rulers of the host of gods, and who grants residence in the groves of Vrindavan forest. I offer my obeisances unto he whose bunch of matted locks is smeared with the oil of affection for Sri Krishna. His singing resembles the sweet, amorous songs of the cuckoo bird. I worship he who wears the pearl-like moon as a crest on his soft, handsome forehead, which itself is like a full moon. He is engaged in praising the son of Nanda Maharaj and the multitude of the gopis. I offer my obeisances unto he who is brilliant, with the half braid shining like the fire of a divine effulgence produced from his meditation. He bestows his darshan on one whose heart has become the dwelling place of Lord Krishna. This is a nice reference to how he gives his devotion, how he gives his blessing to that personality who thinks about Krishna. In his form as a gopi, he is resplendent with well-raised breasts that are enthusiastic for the embrace of Sri Krishna, and is intensely greedy for the sweet nectar of Krishna's limbs, which resemble blue lotuses. I offer my respects to he whose home is the Vrindavan forest. He grants love for Krishna, and his form is full of spiritual energy. He dwells within the heart of the devotee. He is worshipable by Radha and her lover Krishna, and he removes the obstacles of material existence. He destroys all miseries and is the Lord of Keshava and the cowherd men. I bow down to he who is always bright with ecstasy of Radha and Krishna's sportive pastimes. He is easily pleased and is the destroyer of the obstacles of devotion, and is obstacles of devotion to the husband of the goddess of fortune, Sri Krishna. Singing this sweet Gopishwar Astakam, it frees one from all the difficulties and gives pleasure to all the Brajabasis. So in this way, this is the pastimes, prayers glorifying Gopishwar Mahadeva in Vrindavan. Another one of the very important forms of Lord Shiva I mentioned is Chakaleshwar Mahadev at Govardhan Hill. And this is a very interesting story. I was just telling it to a devotee that asked me about this yesterday. When Lord Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill on his little finger, he held the hill up and all the residents came underneath. Now many of us may have in our mind's eye a picture of, okay, this big hill gets lifted up and underneath is all the jagged tree branches and dirt and boulders and uneven ground and all the residents huddled underneath there. But in the Gopal Champu of Jiva Goswami, we find the description that there were jeweled palaces and that there were roads laden with stones and that there were wonderful archways and granaries and residences and very, very nice facility. It wasn't just like, let's huddle underneath a clump of mud for 7 days. How could Krishna give shelter like that? So, in this way, Krishna is holding the hill. The residents are all underneath. Now, Indra has come, and Indra is pouring immense amounts of rain on top of Govardhan Hill. So what's happening with that rain? Now, we know when you go out into the rain with your umbrella, if someone is holding up an umbrella, the rain cascades off of that and falls down to the side, creating a big puddle. And if you stand in one place for a period of time, that puddle then becomes very deep and quite messy. So how to prevent this from happening? Lord Krishna arranged for his chakra to come and hover in the sky just above Govardhan Hill. And the intense heat of the chakra evaporated all the rain that Indra sent down on Govardhan Hill. So in due course of time, Indra left, the rain stopped, Krishna sent all the cowherd men out, and he set Govardhan Hill back down, exactly as it had been. It explains in the Shastra, not so much as one rock was found out of place. Now, at the end of this, Sri Chakra requested, I want to stay here. I don't want to leave this Govardhan place. So Krishna gave him a residence on Govardhan Hill at Manasi Ganga. And that place became known as Chakra Ishwar. Chakra Tirtha, became known as Chakra Tirtha. In due course of time, Lord Shiva came to reside there in one of his many forms that was placed there. And through the local language and all, the name got abbreviated and changed to Chakaleshwar, the Ishwara of Chakratirtha. And this would be Lord Shiva. Now, many devotees have resided there. Actually, there's a very interesting story about Lord Shiva and Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami, as we know, had arranged for the worship of Madan Mohan. Sanatana Goswami at first didn't want to accept Madan Mohan because he said, I'm just a poor sannyasi. I just lived in a little loincloth. You're going to want me to fix you all kinds of meals and all. And anyway, in due course of time, this is exactly what happened. Madan Mohan arranged for a very beautiful temple, and great opulence was there. And in due course of time, the worship became very, very grand. And, of course, with grand worship comes grand Mahaprasadam. And so this Mahaprasadam was being brought to Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami was very fond of Lord Shiva and worshipped him. And so Lord Shiva appeared one night in a dream to Sanatana Goswami and instructed him. He said, you are eating much too opulent for food for a renunciate. He said, this is not very good for you. So you should renounce this living here at Madan Mohan and go out to Chakaleshwar, to the Manasi Ganga. And there's a samadhi there, a bhajan kutir there rather, for Sanatana Goswami. And you should reside there. So Sanatana Goswami took this instruction from Lord Shiva, and he went there to Govardhan, to Manasi Ganga, to this Chakaleshwar. Now, his activity was writing, and he was continuing his writing, but there was one problem. Any of you that have been to India may know this problem. It's the mosquitoes. Now, particularly at Chakaleshwar, Chakratirtha, the mosquitoes were very, 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 very bad. Such a great disturbance. Now, Sanatana Goswami is a completely fixed sadhaka, always absorbed in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, practically not even aware of his external body. So how bad would the mosquitoes have to be that they bothered him? So anyway, he decided in one day, he said, all right, this is just too much. I can't accomplish any work here. I'm going to leave. Now that day, one Brahmin appeared. He said, my dear sadhu, it appears that you're preparing to pack up your small belongings here and move. He says, yes, the mosquitoes here are just too bad. I cannot tolerate it. So that night, Lord Shiva again appeared to Sanatana Goswami and said, do not worry. You stay here. I want you to reside at this place. I will get rid of the mosquitoes. From that day until now, the present day, if you go to that place, there are no mosquitoes. Most amazing thing. Most amazing thing. So, in this way, he actually was able to satisfy the desire for Sanatana Goswami to continue to live there. Now, Rupa Goswami, there's some very, very nice conversation here. At the beginning, conversation and prayers, at the beginning of his Lalita Madhava and Vidagdha Madhava, both which are plays that Rupa Goswami wrote, one about the Vrindavan pastimes and one about the Dwarka pastimes. Lalita Madhava, of course, being about the Vrindavan pastimes, and Vidagdha Madhava being about the Dwarka pastimes. At the beginning of each of these, Rupa Goswami writes the following. For the Lalita Madhava, he writes, Lord Shiva, who is crowned with the half moon and who is famous as the master of the gopis, appeared to me in a dream and has ordered me to write this play. And then at the beginning of the Vidagdha Madhava, he says, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. He says, Lord Shiva, he's quoting Lord Shiva speaking to him. That's why it was. And Lord Shiva says to him, O Rupa Goswami, please protect the devotees by giving them a little of the nectar river of Lord Mukunda's pastimes. My mercy will give you the power to do this. So in this way, Lord Shiva instructed Rupa Goswami. So we have Lord Shiva appearing to Rupa and Sanatan and giving them guidance in their activities of service while they're residing in Vrindavan. So these are some of the very, very small portion of the glories of Lord Shiva, and I'd like to close with one particular pastime that's one of my favorites, and it involves when Lord Krishna was residing in Nandagram, one of the other places where Lord Shiva is known as Nandeshwar. So Lord Shiva had come to know that baby Krishna had made his appearance and was staying in the home of Nanda and Jasoda in Nandagram, Nanda's palace. So he wanted very much to see Krishna. So he came and he knocked on the door. Now we have to understand, as we've read tonight in several different places, the appearance of Lord Shiva, covered in ashes and with a necklace of skulls and bones, and some snakes wrapped around him, his hair and his arms, and wearing a tiger skin, and looking a bit fierce. So he knocked on the door, and Mother Jasoda answered the door, and he said, "Ah, Ma," he said, "may I please have the darshan of your little boy? I have heard he is very beautiful." And of course, Mother Jasoda, she did what any mother would do. She said, "Absolutely not. You are such a frightful, scary personality. If my child sees you, he will begin crying immediately." And she said, "Here, take 2 rotis and leave," and closed the door in his face. And in this way, Lord Shiva was greatly disappointed. At any rate, he got 2 rotis from the home of Krishna, so he was happy. So he took his 2 rotis and went down to the bottom of the hill. There's a kund there called Pavana Sarovar, and he sat there for some time. Now, in the meantime, baby Krishna came to know that my devotee Lord Shiva has come for my darshan, and my mother has sent him away. So he began to cry and cry and cry very fiercely. And the ladies all came as they would tend to, and chanting the different names of the Supreme Lord and trying to serve him and trying to pacify him and make him happy like that. and they were not able to do so. Oh, some ghost has bothered him. Someone has put the evil eye on him. Someone has cursed him. So in this way, Mother Rohini came and she said, let me just ask you, Mother Jasoda, did any sadhu come today? Any unexpected visitor come? Any saintly person that you treated poorly? Oh, no, not at all. She said, some horrible person came all dressed in skulls and bones and covered. He came, and I just gave some chapatis and sent him away. And Rohini said, oh. So actually it wasn't Rohini, it was Purnamasi. It was Purnamasi. And she said, she said then that, well, this must be what has caused the problem. You should send your servants out to seek out this personality and bring him back. So Mother Jasoda became very concerned. Oh, she may have offended some devotee she didn't recognize, and so she sent the servants out. And they found Lord Shiva sitting at the bottom of Nandagram Hill and taking his chapatis very happily. Oh, my dear sadhu, please, you come back. Jasoda, Mom wants you. Please, you come back. So he came back, and Mother Jasoda said, you want to have the darshan of my baby, please? And she brought baby Krishna before Lord Shiva, and immediately baby Krishna stopped crying and started smiling very wonderfully. He was so happy to see his devotee. Lord Shiva became very satisfied and began to dance ecstatically. And the more he danced, the happier baby Krishna became and started laughing. So when all of this dancing and laughing was finished, then Mother Jasoda said to Lord Shiva, she said, I have one request. My son has become very happy you being here. Please, you just reside here at Nandagram and don't go anywhere else. Lord Shiva said, I will agree to stay here on 2 conditions. Mother Jasoda said, yes, what are those conditions? The first condition is that every day you bring me the remnants of your son's meal. And the second condition is that every morning you bring me the Charnamrita that has bathed him. So Mother Jasoda said, yes, certainly. So there is a deity of Lord Shiva known as Nandeshwar Mahadeva, who resides there as the protector of Nandagram. So these are some of the little bit of indication as to how important Lord Shiva is to us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. How necessary it is that we get his blessings, not for the purpose of attaining great wealth or becoming some materialistic, powerful, position-driven, egotistical personality, but for the purpose of getting the shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and having our obstacles removed so that we may enter into the mood of Vrindavan, if not the residence in Sri Vrindavan Dham itself. So we'll finish there for the evening. I've seen throughout the night there's been quite a bit of lively talking in the chat room. That's what a chat room's about, chatting. So if anyone has any questions for me, if any of you would like to put anything forward, we welcome you to write them into the chat room now, and we'll try to address them or answer them in the best of our abilities. Those of you that may want to find more information about Lord Shiva can contact Krishna.com and ask about the Sri Krishna Karnamrita. This is a series of books, magazines rather, put out by the followers of Gaur Govinda Maharaj, and 2 particular issues, Volume 7 and Volume 8, deal very specifically with the pastimes of Lord Shiva, and they're very, very informative in this way. So this is one source that you can get. There's a point brought up here by Earth, Wind, and Fire about devotees getting permission from Lord Shiva to enter the holy dhams. This is that particular prayer here. Which one was it again? Here it is, right here, yeah. The Ohe Kshetra Pala prayer. That Lord Shiva is kind and allows the devotee to enter into the dham and to render that service there. And by that service, then he's able to actually enter into the mood of the dham. Mauricio has a question here. Was his form as a gopi in Vrindavan, or does he always have the same scary form? Well, you know, Lord Shiva, I guess they would say beauty's in the eye of the beholder. How scary he is or is not, how fearful we would or would not be. But this depends on your spiritual vision, you know. Because those of us like myself, when we go to Vrindavan, we see the stone Shiva Lingam form of Gopishwar Mahadev. It's not a deity form such as we would see Radha Shamsundar or Radha Gopinath or like that, Radha Damodar. It's the form of the Lingam, which is how he is commonly worshipped in that way. So no, he's not as a gopi, and he's not very scary either. He's worshipped in that form. How can people get the nectar of the Lord if they are not devotees of the Lord? Arti Dasi. Well, Arti, one can get the mercy of the Lord by taking up the chanting of the holy name. I was just reading today how the holy name and the Lord himself are non-different. And that when one serves the holy name, when one takes shelter of the holy name, when one chants the holy name, this is getting the mercy of the Lord. And so even if one is not a pure devotee of the Lord, even if one is not strictly following the path of devotional service, even if one has not removed all the anarthas from the heart, one can get satisfaction and one can get pleasure from taking shelter of the holy name. And of course, another way is that by associating with the devotees of the Lord, one can enter into the nectar of the Lord, as you describe it here. Because what do the devotees do? The devotees speak about the Lord. The devotees encourage others in the service of the Lord. And this allows us to enter into that connection. So this qualification is not dependent upon whether we have taken initiation or whether we're following strictly or whether we're a very renounced follower like that. No, this is just simply by the association. And then by that association with devotees, one will want to start giving up sinful desires, anarthas as it's called. And then by appreciating the devotees and giving up anarthas, one begins to develop a taste. So it's just important to associate with the devotees, to associate with the holy name, and then these things will develop over the course of time. Anyone else have any questions there in our chat room this evening? Benevolent Bear has mentioned that he chants, follows the regulative principles, and associates. He doesn't have initiation, but this morning he felt Krishna dancing on his tongue. This is the mood that a devotee strives to develop, to actually appreciate that the holy name and Krishna are the same. Bhaktivinoda Thakur described like this, how the holy name was dancing on the tip of his tongue when he would chant. So this is what we strive for. Congratulations, Benevolent Bear. Anyone else have anything for us this evening? Kartik, it's always nice to see you appreciating everything. Appreciating the japa and the holy name like that. R.T. Devi Dasi is asking, can I be able to tell the people about the Lord so they can get the nectar? Certainly. This is the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness. You can in turn spread that to everyone else. Just as you get the satisfaction of associating with the devotees, and just as you become very satisfied entering into the pastimes of the Lord and hearing about these pastimes, you can turn around and tell that same mood to someone else. This is very, very wonderful. This is the beauty of the ISKCON movement that Prabhupada has given us, this preaching. This is the mood of Lord Chaitanya, to share this. Benevolent Bear has asked about my earrings being accepted in the ISKCON movement. I saw this conversation going on earlier, back and forth there. It's not required, it's not prohibited. There are 12 various samskars given in the books of the Goswamis, particularly Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And one of these samskars is the piercing of the ears. It's done when a child is much younger. If this is not a distraction to one's Krishna consciousness and one doesn't become very proud and some huge, big, shining, effulgent earrings, like sometimes you see these rapper music people have, these huge, big, there's something simple and nice. If it, there's no harm in it. The main thing is that whatever you do, be Krishna conscious. Hey, Surfer Bob just popped in. Surfer Bob, we missed you. You're just here at the end of the show. And can pets, RT's asking, can pets have the names of the Lord? Sure, why not? We had 2 little birds in our house, a couple of parakeets, and my daughter gave them devotee names, So why not? Whatever you can do that reminds you about Krishna. Here at the temple in New Raman Reti, we live out in the country, so we have mice. So we have one cat here, and that cat's name is, what's her name again? Nishringa? Not Nishringa. Something I forget.
Rasalila.
Rasalila. Rasalila's the cat. In the St. Louis Temple, we had a cat there, lived in the basement and kept the mice away. Her name was Nishringa. She was really a fierce cat. So sure, why not? Whatever reminds you of Krishna, that is the point.
Essence of all rules and regulations.
Yes, this is the essence of all rules and regulations. Surfer Bob's got a horse named Garuda. So Garuda carries Surfer Bob quickly through the wind. All right, everyone, thank you very much. It's been a lively discussion. I appreciate this time for you all. I appreciate you all being there to help me stay focused on Krishna. And we thank you very much for joining us once again in another evening in the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. Hare Krishna. Yeah, I saw that whole thing about the earrings.